guests and experts to share their unfiltered truth about the journey to self-actualization and the path to heart-centered leadership. You'll hear raw lessons, learn ancient wisdom, and practical steps to rise to your fullest potential. Now is the time to walk into this new paradigm of leadership. Let's transcend together. Of transcendent leadership. I am recording this as one of the last few episodes that I will be recording in this beautiful condo that I am in currently in Boulder, Colorado. This was the first place that I arrived at upon moving here, and it feels like it was and is very sweet, and it held me through a major transition that I was in. Now I'm getting ready to transition again and move to a different home. I will still be in Boulder. I love this place too much to leave just yet, but I am really going through a transition and change. And with that brings up a lot of energy, a lot of emotions, whether that be grief around what you are releasing or excitement around what's new. When you are in a season of change and transition, particularly when you are moving, so much comes up, which is why I have needed to double down on my nervous system regulation tools around my leaning into my community, as well as rest and recovery and reflection and doing all of the things that I know are really helpful, but really doubling down on them, especially maintaining a business while in the middle of this. And it's been and is a really activating a couple of weeks for me. So I wanted to share with you one of my favorite nervous system regulation tools that I've been using almost every day. And if I'm not using it every day, I'm using it at least once or a couple of times a week because it's been massively supportive for me. It's really good when you are feeling unregulated, like I said, during times of change and transition. It's really good when you want to reset your energy. Maybe you had client calls during the day and you want to experience a fresh and new energy. It's really good for when you're facing something really hard and challenging and you want to overcome it with this like triumphant passion and victorious kind of energy. You're really wanting to show up as like a warrior in the space. And it's just overall good for inflammation, for circulation, for mental health, for there's so many different things it's good for autoimmune issues, etc. This tool is one of the things that I keep going back to over and over and over again. And so if you're not familiar with what I'm alluding to, it is cold plunges, ice baths, and cold water therapy. And before you stop this podcast and you're like, I'm not about it, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to, lean into it, I'm terrified, I don't want to get into the cold, how could this be helpful? I want to let you know that I was one of those people. I used to be, and in some ways am actually still afraid of the cold. Growing up, I had really, like, I almost want to say sensitive circulation. So, or temperature. I couldn't really navigate my temperature or be able to bring it to a place where it was regulated. So I would either swing on one end where I'd be incredibly hot or swing on the other end where I'd be incredibly cold. And I could deal with the influx of being hot, but getting cold was so painful for my system. I would go to concerts and I would be the friend wrapped in blankets. I couldn't even drink cold water at concerts outside because it was so cold. My lips would turn purple, my feet would turn purple. And this was certainly a circulation problem that ironically is helped from leaning into the cold. And it's interesting because something that I have really realized and sat with and embraced on my spiritual journey is remembering that the thing that I hold the greatest fear with often has the greatest medicine for me. So many people talk about this as resistance. Like what you resist is often where your breakthrough is. And I totally agree with that. And I think that beyond the breakthrough is just recognizing that there's constant and never ending medicine for us in the things that we're having a hard time confronting or looking at. And being in cold water and just being in nature and even around animals, like this unpredictability, this discomfort has always been really challenging for me. So cold water therapy, ice baths, cold plunges have really given me the opportunity to confront something that I've dealt with my whole life, being afraid of it. Number two, having circulation challenges and issues in my body, being able to regulate. And then number three, just finding it overall really supportive in my nervous system as I've learned and been trained more about how to move into the body and how to release stuck emotion and come into greater awareness around subtle energy. Doing these practices have become really helpful. So I want to give you a little bit of background around cold water therapy, cold plunges, and then I want to tell you how to do it and give you a couple of tips that have been really instrumental in my process, because diving straight into it, pun intended, would not necessarily be the best thing. There's a little bit of safety precaution you want to have. There's awareness around what might come up for you that you want to have. So I want to support you and offer this in an ethical and moral way for you, because I'm endorsing it. I want to tell you things about it so that you come from an educated place, an informed place, and a place of safety and awareness. And so there are incredible amounts of benefits for cold water plunges. And so, particularly, a lot of people do it for nervous system regulation because it puts your body in the sympathetic nervous system state. So, fight or flight, right? When you get into that water, you literally feel like you are going to die. Every part of you is like, run, flee, this hurts. Oh my God, what am I doing? Everything, like it's like all of your greatest fears come up, which is natural and normal and actually really healthy. Your body is responding in a way that it should be, which is really good to know, right? Your body is responding. Many people kind of talk negatively about the nervous system, like I need to regulate my nervous system, or my nervous system's being triggered, or whatever's happening. Your body is really intelligent. And so it is offering you a warning sign or an opportunity to see that it's working really intelligently. So when you get into the water, you're going to feel like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And this fight or flight response, this sympathetic nervous system response is really going to offer you space to be able to come more into the body. So your heart rate increases, your blood vessels constrict. You're starting to release these stress hormones, particularly cortisol and what is it called? Non-adrenaline. I can't pronounce it. You're releasing adrenaline and cortisol. You're releasing all of these stress hormones. And so as all of these things are happening, it's releasing, right? So we think that you're just contracting, but what's happening is your body is literally preparing to fight. You're preparing to flee. You're preparing to do something that's going to help you come back into a state of calm, but the energy almost needs to be exerted. So when you get into the water, you're going to feel like you're going to die. All of these things start to happen. And then if you can regulate your breath. So this is why breath is really important. I like to take really deep breaths in and out because breath can calm your nervous system. When your heart rate increases, your body starts to think that something is wrong, right? So if you can bring breath and elongated breaths into your body, you're telling your nervous system, I am safe, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to breathe that way. If you're running from a tiger, you're not going to be able to sit and do box breathing, right? You're going to be like, you're going to be hyperventilating. So if you can control your breath, that is going to be one of the greatest tips in cold plunges or ice plunges, because it's telling your body that I am safe. So all of these things start to happen. You start to feel a little chaotic. You come into your breath, you come into your body. And then after about a minute or so, you start to feel really cold. Of course, Spirit is telling me, tell them they're going to feel cold. You're going to feel cold, but you're also going to start to feel centered and peace. And almost for me, my experience has been I enter into this really monk-like state of calmness where the whole world seems to slow down, where when a bird chirps, it like reverberates through my entire body, where I'm just only in that moment. This is a really great exercise for those of you who have anxiety, like I've navigated my entire life, because the mind can go really fast and start to worry. When you're in a survival state, which is putting yourself into a cold plunge, you don't have the capacity to think about where your rent is going to come from if you're worried about money or what's going on in your marriage or relationship. You can only focus on that present moment. So it's like this hyper speed, like zoop, energy that like brings you fully into your body in the present moment, unlike anything I've ever done before. And I've done breath work, and I think that's incredible. That's one of my other tools. And I've done a lot of different I use a lot of different techniques, but ice plunges are one of the sharpest and fastest ways. So, with cold plunges, it has been shown to decrease your stress hormones, to increase circulation, as I've mentioned before, to help with an overall sense of well being, to help with autoimmune disease and inflammation. I mean, there's a reason why Wim Hof, who's also paired breath work with these cold plunges, where this guy is literally diving in these cold Antarctic places, has he's super healthy. He's running around, he's doing all these things. The body actually craves challenge. It craves cold. And because, well, it doesn't necessarily crave cold, but you start to realize once you do this, you will start to crave cold. We live in a world where we're not actively challenging our bodies as much, and we live more sedentary lives where we're sitting at our desk like I'm doing right now, and we're not exerting a lot of energy. When you challenge your body in this way, it's really primal, it's very healthy, and your body starts to crave the challenge to exert the energy. I've experienced many times in my life where I feel like I was so anxious mentally because my body had so much energy that it needed to exert, which is, could be a reason why for many of you, you love working out or lifting weights or doing things that really invite you deeper into yourself. Even some yogic poses are really challenging, right? So the art of challenging yourself in this way, plus the overall benefits of cold therapy for the list that I provided, as well as the mental health aspects, is overall why I feel like it's a really good tool. And so I do want to say that this is not going to be suitable for everyone. Many people actually do not like doing this at all, which I honor and commend, and everybody has their thing. For me, I'm the warrior type, Aries energy. I love to be challenged. I love to confront my fears and demons and all of that. And so it's really good for me. And it has shown me how powerful and resilient my body is because I've navigated so many health challenges, from PCOS to SIBO to anxiety and depression, and just overall hormone and metabolic issues. It has been really supportive for me in my body, but it's not for everyone. So if you're like, this is not for me, absolutely do not try this. If you're curious but also scared, I invite you to definitely do it. And so some key points I want to share with you that are going to help make this process easier are: number one is you want to almost in a way gradually build up. I mean, you probably could jump in a river and do it for 5 minutes, but at the same time, it could be such a shock to your system, which is primarily what it does. It's a disruptor. It disrupts the energy that you're in. It redirects kind of the pathway that you're going, the momentum that you're going, whether that be like a negative thought loop or a pattern, or the way that your nervous system is really just building upon its scarcity, its survival. It can really pattern interrupt. And so you might want to gradually build up to it. My first ice plunge, I think I did a couple minutes, then I went up to 5, and then I think the longest one I've done was 10 or 11 minutes. And so I didn't do that overnight. I build up my capacity just like everything else, whether it be our emotional capacity, our capacity for vulnerability, our capacity to hold wealth. We build it up over time because that is what helps us be really sustainable with it. Okay. So number two is how to kind of, how to do it, and things that are really helpful are you want to have degrees between 34 and 59 degrees. You could, if you don't have a river near you, which I highly encourage you to do a river, because the water molecules and the energy and the electrons that come from a running water can actually really scientifically even cleanse your auric field and your energy and recharge you in a way that still water is not really able to. This is not necessarily spiritual. This is science. Okay. So if you can get a running water, I would do that. If you can only do an ocean, which is, running water and moving water. But if you can only do an ice bath, then I would just fill up the ice bath and you're not going to need to necessarily measure the temperature, but you're going to just fill it with ice and fill it with water. And then you're going to want to get in. And the key here is to slowly get in and start breathing. And the thing is, actually, many people just do a lot of breath of fire. They'll like, so fast, sharp in, fast out through the nose, breath of fire. Maybe I'll do another podcast on that. That's something that I do really often to build up fire and energy momentum, especially when I'm wanting to create something or move anger. So you can do that before an ice bath to really warm up your body. You can stretch, you can jump up and down and do some somatic or shamanic shaking. You can do a little bit of that to warm up. I kind of just like to go straight in. So I go in, but I'm really monitoring and regulating my breath. So I'm going slowly in, and I'm like even blowing sharp air out. And I'm just going really slow. And then when you submerge, you want to submerge with your neck in, because that will support you in releasing, in detoxing and supporting with your thyroid gland. It's really, really helpful in that way. And so you'll definitely want to have a timer, maybe even a coach or a friend to support you in it. And for me, I like to have silence. When there's music and distraction, I'm like all over the place. I like silence, don't talk, be next to me, maybe say a couple of words and just time me. Tell me when I hit a couple minutes. And so put a timer on if you're by yourself, or bring a friend and have them help you monitor. And you want to stay in for maybe around 3 to 5 minutes, because it's not really until then that you actually get the benefits of it. And so you're going to want to stay in for that time period. And then when you feel like you're at your edge, maybe stay a little bit longer and then slowly get out. And then you're going to obviously want to have a towel. And one of the things that you do not want to do is do not want to go directly into heat. And there's a lot of different theories around this, and I embrace them, but the science that I've learned is that it's best to allow your body a couple of minutes to warm up by itself, and then you can rotate between hot and cold, which is actually really good for the body. But allow your body a minute or so to really warm up by itself before you get directly into a hot shower, because that's when the chemicals are released. That's when your body is preparing to release serotonin and all these really healthy neurochemicals that make you feel elated and on top of the world when you are done. It is one of the best, most euphoric, almost high like feelings that I have ever felt. So you want to allow your body to warm up by itself so that it can bring you back to your space. And then one of the final things that I want to say about it is, after you're done, go into a meditative state. This, like I just said, this is when all of the chemicals are flushing out. This is when everything is firing. So this is a time to really center and focus on what it is that you're creating, what it is that you're releasing, what it is that you want to feel, or to just surrender to the energy and feel the subtle energy of what's happening in your body and get into a Zen like state and just be open. It is a very beautiful time after one of these experiences to just get centered and grounded. So, that is how to do a cold plunge or an ice bath. There are a lot of different people who have actual cold plunges at their house where they have deep freezers or these contraptions, or they just fill up their bathtub, or they go in a river. If you don't have access to any of these things, I also invite you to maybe start with a cold shower. This is the thing that I've been doing nearly every day. So I get into the shower, I get into the warmth, and I brace myself and I turn it all the way down, and I stand there and I do the breath similarly, and I do the front and back for a couple minutes on each side, and you get a lot of the same benefits. You can't really submerge your entire body and neck, so it's not as intense or potent, but it really offers you the same kind of release of chemicals, the same facing of the difficulty, and the same support with circulation and inflammation, etc. It really helps a lot, even with burning fat. I've heard this brown fat. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on that, but it really helps with that. So cold plunges, cold therapy, ice baths, cold showers, cold is incredibly supportive for our nervous systems and for regulating. And once you start to incorporate this in your daily life and your practice and really allow it to be something that you can find enjoyment in or release in, you're going to notice how powerful it is for your life. Every single day when I do this, I feel sharp, I feel grounded, I feel in my body. I feel like I've conquered something for the day. So the warrior in me is like, yes, let's do this. Let's take it on, especially when I do it at the beginning of the day. And I can't rave about it enough. Obviously, I recorded a whole podcast episode about it, so it's really meaningful for me. And maybe in the next couple of months, we'll bring on an actual cold plunge expert so we could dive into this a little bit more. But I just wanted to plant this seed because we're talking about safety last week. We're talking about nervous system. We're really talking about how do we elevate our energy, our frequencies, and bring our bodies with us as we ascend, because we can't forget about the body. The body is what holds the energy and the frequency, helps us transmit, and also ultimately is what we're here to take care of. And doing these kinds of techniques can be incredibly transformative for our processes. So I hope that you love this episode. Please share this with somebody who you think would find it helpful, particularly those who are really navigating some difficult times and seasons or who feel really unregulated or stressed out. It is a miracle worker. Water and cold and really confronting things about our human experience is one of the greatest ways to transcend. So many blessings to you on your journey. And I would love to know if you do a cold plunge or an ice bath or whatever you do with cold water therapy, how it supported you and what you found to be really meaningful. Many blessings to you today. See you next week. Bye bye.